At what point does it become too warm for magnetism? How's everyone doing out there today? I am Thomas, and welcome to my channel. I do educational videos on all kinds of different subjects, from math and geometry, the sacred versions of those. All the things that I really work on are the alternative, more obscure and esoteric variety of your basic 3R subjects. So different versions of math and geometry, also physics and chemistry, history, fitness and nutrition, and I put them all together. And that's why I'm using the first phase of this to teach the tree of life. And the tree of life, I think, is important for a number of reasons, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it's important because it serves as a common denominator for all those other subjects. So if you can learn tree of life, you can really consolidate your learning on all the other subjects. When you learn the other subjects, you can easily put them into context and put them into perspective with the tree, and that way you have easy recall of them and ready access to those other teachings. So the tree of life is really the foundation to get started. Another thing is that the tree of life is really a self-defense mechanism, because there are a lot of pretty evil people that use the tree of life also, and they're using it against you. And so if you can, learn their methods, what they use, then you are able to defend yourself against that. The tree of life is neither good nor bad. Just like all technology, it's the matter of the intention of the person who's using it. And so, it's not a bad thing by itself, but it is bad when it is put into bad hands. And this learning it yourself will help you to be able to defend yourself against those kind of attacks. So there's a couple of reasons here. But to go further with the tree, it's basically an ancient diagram, comes from at least as far back as ancient Egypt. There are many different permutations and many different understandings of it. The particular understanding that I have starts with the books called Magnetism by Ra Neferamen, and those are great books. But they just kind of get me started. And then in addition to that, a lot of the other esoteric subjects that I've studied, and also meditation, have contributed to my understanding. So I kind of have my own understanding of it, but a lot of it was influenced, especially initially, by the Magnetism books. Never have really gotten a whole lot out of the Hebrew Kabbalah or any of those interpretations. I'm not sure why. I just haven't resonated with them. I've been exposed to some of those, to Crowley and so on, but I don't really. I know Crowley does Tree of Life, but also, Kabbalah, OTO, and just haven't picked up on it. Maybe I would if I was presented with the right source. So anyway, the tree of life is basically got 12 different components, and they are include these 10 different circles or spheres that are numbered 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. There is a thing here called the abyss, and then there's a 0 that is above the tree. These represent more or less our faculties of consciousness, or you could say our abilities of consciousness or capabilities of consciousness. We start with the 10, and the 10 is really what we have to go with when we're born. And this is our survival instinct. This is our wild animal consciousness, the law of the jungle, kill or be killed, the fight or flight impulse, and also the state of our body, to make sure it gets fed and it gets the proper amount of sleep, or at least something close to those things. And it also has to do with kind of the lusts and the defilements of the body as well. Okay, then as we grow up, starting with the first years of our life, we begin to open up some of the other spheres to start with. We start with 9. This is really our domestic consciousness, or even our mammalian consciousness. This is what we're getting the first few years of our lives when we're growing up in the home, and we're just really soaking up everything from our caregivers or whoever's in our environment, but especially those that we trust, the ones that are feeding us and cleaning us up. And we watch what they do, and then we try to imitate what they do. We use our memory, and we practice. We practice the movements that they do. They show us how to walk by just walking, and we pick it up. But, we fall down a million times before we pick it up. We keep falling down and we keep getting back up. We got to practice over and over again. Most of the behaviors that you have now that you don't even think about are because when you were very young, you practiced them over and over and over again, and you got them wrong over and over and over again until you figured it out. But then once you do figure it out, eventually it becomes old hat, and you've got it mastered, and then it leaves your consciousness and it becomes unconscious. It becomes something that you have in your rote memory, or goes down into your body memory. It becomes automatic. So now you can walk and you don't even think about it. It's not something that even crosses your mind. And it's to that point, even when it does start crossing your mind, that's when you start screwing up. When you do start thinking about your walking, that's when it becomes way more difficult. So you just put it into your subconscious, below the conscious, and that deals with it. Okay, then when we go to the A sphere, it's kind of similar, but it's out where the ninth sphere is in the domestic sphere. The A sphere is the public sphere. So this is once you go out and you go to school, you go to church, you encounter the paradigms, the establishment paradigms, the way that you're supposed to think about things, the things that you're supposed to believe in, the expert opinion, the conventional wisdom, or even common sense, or phrases like everybody knows that. Those are the things that get thrown in, and you're supposed to just believe it. And if you do believe it, the skids are greased. You have an easy path, easier path through life, because you just believe what they tell you, and so they exalt you. They boost you up. They give you the highest grades. They put you into the best schools. They give you the better jobs. If you can demonstrate that you can follow the directions. But if you don't, and the problem is that what they are teaching you to believe in is not true. The A sphere is all about illusion and trickery. So they want you to believe in something that isn't true. And to the extent that you do that, you can get into the A sphere. But if you actually have a moment of consciousness, realization, or discernment, or just honesty, you recognize, hey, you know what, this isn't really true. And that means that you get shunned by the eighth sphere, and you may find yourself drifting over to the seventh sphere, where the eighth sphere is about the real world. The seventh sphere is about the imaginary world. So imagination is one of the faculties here, and you imagine something better. You see what's going on here, and you see the problems. You come over here and you work to rectify those problems. You use your imagination. You also use your inspiration. You use your intuition. And you use your creativity and your pleasure principle, and you try to put things together in harmonious wholes that please people, but you're putting things together to come up with an alternative to the asphere. You want to present things in a way that makes the asphere improve. To a certain extent, you're being a little bit naive, because you're thinking that if I improve upon the asphere, that'll be recognized. But because you're thinking that the people at the asphere actually want to put something together that makes sense, you're not really realizing that the asphere doesn't want to improve. And so eventually you have to either recognize that you give it back to the asphere and they use it for whatever purposes they want. They basically twist it around and turn it back into an illusion, or you have to keep carrying that new invention or that new artwork, the new song or whatever it is, up the tree, following your inspiration. And the inspiration is the 1% that pushes you up, but the 99% is the perspiration that you have to use in order to take this path. So it's very difficult. But if you can get here, you realize that you can get here because you are here. This is where you're centered. And if this was a map, it would say you are here. But the problem is, this is our free will faculty. And our free will faculty is our ability to pay attention and to make decisions. And the first decision that we have to make is to fix our attention, because our attention is focused downward on the tree, focused on the eighth sphere and on the ninth sphere and on the 10th sphere, because these are the areas that we grew up with. This is our comfort zone. This is where we're used to. And so we pay attention to the mandates that are being given here. And so when we want to exercise our free will, we have to focus on our decision making. And the decision that we must make is to turn our attention around so that we're paying attention in this direction, up the tree, instead of down into this matrix here. So in order to free ourselves and exercise our free will, we have to make the decision to change our attention and focus our attention up the tree. Now, the first thing that we can focus on here is the fifth sphere, because that's the first thing here. And the fifth sphere is our sense of justice. Okay, this is also, you might call it karma. What comes around goes around. And as you sow, so shall you reap. And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And the karma here, even though it's a bit scary and unsettling as well, and it's punishing you. But if you use it constructively, it can be your teacher, because if you act, it gives you feedback on your actions. And if your actions aren't up to par, then you get, reactions that are not up to par either. And so in order to improve the reactions that you're getting, you can improve your own behavior. What you have to recognize is that karma is feeding back based on violence, waste, and violation. So when you violate somebody, then somebody violates you back. And if you are cognizant of that, then you can improve your behavior. If you get violated and then you say, well, I must have deserved that. Uh, what did I do to somebody else? And then you realize, oh, I did the exact same thing to that person. And that way, that can clean up your own behavior. So if you can take the feedback that you get from the fifth sphere and use it as a lesson for yourself, then you're learning from your fifth sphere, and your attention is beginning to be focused on the right things. Now, the fourth sphere is the counterpart to the fifth sphere, where the fifth sphere is the enforcement of the law, karma. The fifth sphere is the enforcement of the law, karma. The fourth sphere is about the articulation of the law through cosmologies or holy books or theories of everything, books that portend to purport to discuss everything, how the world came about, who is God, what are we in comparison, what are we here for, what's the universe all about, what are its natural laws, how does everything work together. These are all part of the fourth sphere cosmology, and this is determined through observation through the generations, and it's compiled into a book, and that book eventually needs to be revised, and probably has been revised many times. The better the book is, the less it needs to be revised. The fourth sphere also relates to a universal love and universal language. Universal language as languages that we know implicitly, that we don't have to learn, and that we can communicate with other people through those languages, and maybe also through not even just people, but then also universal love, give seeking nothing in return, and ability to love our enemies. Psychic powers are in the abyss. This has to do with magnetism. It has to do with electromagnetism, but in particular, what's within the abyss has to do with with magnetism, and this is our psychic powers, our ability to tune into and recognize omens, and then to be able to act upon those omens. Those are our psychic heat and psychic receptivity. And then, as we'll see today, there are many more advanced kinds of psychic powers, and we can tune into those also through encountering more special circumstances that are located here in the abyss. Okay, now 3, 2, and 1 are our divine faculties within. And this is omnipotence, all-powerful, omniscience, all-knowing, or wisdom, or ability to solve problems. And then omnipresence, all-present, all at once, eternally, all everything. And we tap into this through sound and synchronizing it. We tap into this through seeing, really to be able to see what's at our deepest center. And this is actually our ability to be what is at our deepest center. And this is a unifying factor, because what is the singularity at our deepest core or deepest center is the same as everybody else. Everybody else has the same spark at their center. So it's a unifying factor for all of us. Well, once we can become still enough to really go all the way down to that core. And like I've been saying, it's like a pool of water. If the water is choppy and it's moving, then you can't see through it, but it becomes transparent as you calm the water down. Once it gets to a certain stillness, then you can begin to see through it. Okay, then the 0 above the tree, And so that's the mind. The mind has to become so still that you can see through it. And then the zero above the tree is the aspect of the universe that is actually not in the universe. So it is a mystery. It's beyond our comprehension because it's not in the universe. It's part of the creator, but it is not part of the universe. So this is the part that the creator reserves for itself. And so we only have indirect access to it. And you can think of it kind of as the rules of the game, or the parameters that existed, before the game was created. If you think of the universe as a game, which I think is a useful analogy. Okay, so that is the beginner's aspect to the tree. Now, when I teach another step, an intermediate step toward the tree, which is to use it as a fractal. So I basically have taken each one of the spheres and boiled it down to its 12 separate parts. So you can take the third sphere and basically place a whole tree on it. And so I break down the third sphere into the 10th part of the third sphere, and the 9th part of the third sphere, and the 8th part of the third sphere, and so on. And do the same with each one of the other spheres. So I break each one of the 12 down into its own 12. So that's a total of 144 separate mini faculties, or what I call fractal faculties, or stages of life. So these are not chronological stages, but dramatic stages that we go through as we move through life. And those are listed in a list that I've compiled that I would love to share with you. If you click the link in the description, I will send you a copy of those fractal faculties. And that will help you just as we go through these different videos. Each one of these videos, I'm going to be presenting one of the 144 fractal faculties. Today, we're looking at number 92. At what point does it become too warm for magnetism? And we will see that we are smack dab in the middle of the abyss here. Okay, so the abyss is about magnetism, really electromagnetism. The fractals, the abyss fractals within the other spheres correspond to the electricity part. The magnetism is embodied within the sphere itself. Now, I guess we're dealing with a little bit of both here, because we are looking at the abyss fractal of the abyss. So we're looking at the point of the abyss, really like the essence of the abyss. And it is called the Curie point. Number 92, Curie point. Stage number 92 is about the temperature at which the atomic motion becomes too great or small enough, depending on which way you're going across the border, for perfect alignment with the magnetic charge. It leads to or from ferromagnetism, as ferromagnetism can only exist below the Curie point. The Curie point, named after Pierre Curie, is a temperature at the time region, or the unit space boundary, just like the melting point or the freezing point, which are the same points. The rules reverse across this unit space boundary. On the low temperature side of this boundary, magnetism in an atom is amplified greatly. Magnetism thrives in the cold, as there are not so many disruptive forces to misalign the magnetic forces. Same as superconductivity. The Curie point is the door to or from extreme paramagnetism or ferromagnetism, which is dependent upon temperature. Across the Curie point, across the Curie temperature, it becomes too warm, and ferromagnetism cannot maintain, and thereby becomes paramagnetism. Ferromagnetic elements become paramagnetic, and in the other direction, paramagnetic elements can be induced to become permanent magnets, such as ferromagnets. The cold side of the Curie point is also the entrance to mind-altering states, to divine states, and to our more advanced psychic powers. Ferromagnetism is the source of full-blown psi, or psychic powers. The full manifestation of our psychic powers, clairvoyance, clairaudience, teleportation, psychokinesis, and many more. Powerful abilities, as long as we do not become distracted. They are not the end goal or even a sure sign of progress on the spiritual path. More like a byproduct, given that we're already using psychic powers every day, we might as well know how to use them wisely. Advanced psionic ability requires cooling off, eliminating disruptions, and being still. Don't be afraid of it. It starts out subtly with precognition and being able to hear someone else's intentions. But the psychic powers are just parlor tricks until given some discipline and some control. Okay, that is number 92, the abyss fractal within the abyss sphere, the Curie point, named after the Pierre Curie, who was the husband of Marie Curie. And they were big researchers in, I believe, the late 19th, early 20th century about radioactivity and other atomic manifestations. And yeah, so that's ferromagnetism is the bridge toward the full-blown psi. We talk about the psychic powers, your ability to be able to tune into and recognize omens, but then once we can enter and pass the Curie point and move into the ferromagnetic aspect, then we can experience more full-blown psychic powers. Okay, well, thank you for sticking around to the end. Please hit the like button, and you can share the video with others, subscribe to the channel, click the link in the description if you'd like a free copy of those 144 fractal faculties that I've compiled. And you can also donate via Venmo or Cash App. And I do have a couple of other books for sale if you'd like to inquire. One is kind of just an intro to Tree of Life that that I'd be happy to sell to you for a reasonable price. Okay, have a beautiful day. Tune in tomorrow for another one of the 144 fractal faculties, just like every day. And yeah, we'll see you then.